There are moments when the road ahead is invisible, and the only light we have is the word that tells us to go, to step into the dark with nothing but a promise. Nearly 4,000 years ago, in the sophisticated city of Ur, a man named Abram heard a voice. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command that would ripple through eternity. "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household," the voice said. It was a call to strip away every layer of security he had ever known. And the destination, it was unnamed. "Go to the land I will show you." No map was provided, only the instruction to begin. To leave home without a map is a task most would find impossible. Yet Abram, who would become Abraham, didn't ask for coordinates. He simply began the walk. Welcome to Beside Still Waters. Today we walk with Abraham into the unknown, following the road of faith. We must understand the gravity of this departure. In 2000 BC, your identity was your land and your kin. To leave them was to become a ghost in the eyes of the world. With him went his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and a community of servants. They were a small island of conviction moving through a sea of traditional gods. The world they left behind was one of stone walls and irrigation, a world of visible security. The world they entered was one of tents and shifting horizons. The journey first took them north, following the curve of the Fertile Crescent. Day after day, the sun rose and set on a road that felt endless. In the silence of the desert, the questions must have come. Is the voice still there? Is the promise real? Faith is the quiet answer to the noise of doubt. They reached the city of Haran, hundreds of miles from Ur. Here, the journey paused. The records show they stayed for years. Haran was a crossroad of trade, a place where it was easy to settle and forget that the destination was still elsewhere. Sometimes the good is the enemy of the promised. It was in Haran that Terah, Abraham's father, died. The last living link to his old life in Ur was severed. The comfort of the father's house was gone forever. But the call did not end with Terah's death. At 75, an age when most seek rest, Abraham heard the voice again. It was time to leave the familiar once more. They set out with even more possessions and people. Every mile gained was a mile deeper into the mystery of God's intent. They crossed the great river. Those who saw them might have seen a wealthy nomad, but Abraham saw himself as a pilgrim, a man whose home was a word. They entered the land of Canaan. It was not the lush valley of the Euphrates. It was a land of hills, valleys, and strangers, the terrain of trust. Their first significant stop was at Shechem, by the great tree of Moreh. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. The promise was surrounded by others. There, Abraham built an altar. It was his first stake in the land, not a building for himself, but a place of worship for the one who called him. God appeared to him there and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." The promise was growing more specific, yet the fulfillment was still generations away. From Shechem, he moved on toward the hills east of Bethel. He was learning to live in a tent, a temporary dwelling for a permanent promise. This became the rhythm of his life, the tent and the altar. One for his earthly needs, the other for his spiritual anchor. He lived between the visible and the invisible. But the road of faith is never a straight line. A severe famine struck the land. The land of promise could no longer provide bread. Trust was met with hunger. Driven by survival, Abraham led his people down to Egypt. It was a detour of necessity, a moment where the map of the heart became clouded by fear. In Egypt, the pilgrim became a deceiver. Fearing for his life, he called Sarai his sister. Even the greatest giants of faith have moments of staggering weakness. The record shows that God's grace is bigger than our failures. Pharaoh sent them away with many gifts, and Abraham left Egypt with more wealth but a heavier heart. He returned to the place where he had first built an altar, between Bethel and Ai. He went back to the beginning to start again. Recovery is a key part of the journey. Success brought its own trials. The herds of Abraham and Lot grew too large for the land. Quarreling broke out. The peace of the journey was at risk. Abraham chose grace over rights. He gave Lot the first choice of the land. "If you go left, I'll go right." If you go right, I'll go left. He trusted the provider more than the land. Lot chose the fertile plains of the Jordan, moving toward the city of Sodom. To the eye, Lot won. He took the best and left the rest for his uncle. Left with the rugged hills, Abraham was again alone with God, and it was in this moment of perceived loss that the voice spoke with the greatest clarity. "Lift up your eyes," the voice said. "All the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. Walk through the length and breadth of it." He moved his tent and settled near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron. Once again, he built an altar. He was claiming the land with his presence and his praise. Years turned into decades. The promise of a son remained unfulfilled. The road without a map often feels like a road that has stalled. Waiting is the hardest walk. He was invited to look at the stars, not as cold fires in the sky, but as a visual representation of his future. "So shall your offspring be." And he believed. In a deep sleep, a covenant was cut. A smoking firepot and a blazing torch passed between the pieces. The promise was sealed in blood and light. It was no longer just a word, it was a bond. His name was changed from Abram to Abraham, father of many. He was carrying the title of the promise before he saw the person of the promise. Faith speaks of things that are not as if they were. Finally, the laughter came. Isaac was born. The destination was no longer a theory, it was a life. The road had led to the miracle. But the mapless road had one final, breathtaking turn. Take your son, your only son, whom you love. The call to let go of the very thing he had waited a lifetime for. On Mount Moriah, the knife was stayed. The ram in the thicket was the provider. Abraham learned that the one who calls is more precious than the gift he gives. Abraham died at a good old age, full of years. He never owned the land except for a burial plot. He died as he lived, a resident of a promise, a citizen of another country. His legacy was not a kingdom of stone, but a lineage of trust. He showed us that the map doesn't matter when the one who holds the pen is faithful. We tell this story not just to remember a man, but to remember a way of being, the way of the pilgrim who walks by faith and not by sight. From the streets of to the hills of Hebron, the road was long and winding, but every step was held by the same grace that spoke in the beginning, and that grace has not changed. The road Abraham walked is the same road that winds through your own life today. Tonight, you might feel like you've been dropped onto a path you didn't choose. The map you spent years drawing has been taken away, and you are standing in the unknown. It is a frightening place to be. We crave the walls of the security of knowing exactly what tomorrow looks like. But sometimes, those walls are also cages. Can you hear the voice in the silence of your own uncertainty? It's not asking you to solve the mystery of your future. It's only asking you to take the next step. You don't need a map when you have a companion. The one who called Abraham from his father's house is walking beside you in your own house tonight. Faith isn't knowing where you are going, it's knowing who you are with. You can trust the road because the one who paved it knows the way home. Take a deep breath. Let the weight of the destination fall away. The promise isn't at the end of the road. The promise is the one holding your hand right now. You are not a wanderer without a purpose. You are a pilgrim on a journey of discovery. Every uncertainty is an invitation to lean in a little closer. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, but you don't have to face them tonight. Rest in the knowledge that you are seen, you are known, and you are led. The road without a map is where the greatest stories are written. Yours is still unfolding. Trust the road. Trust the process. Trust Him. May the peace that passes all understanding guard your heart and your mind as you sleep. May you wake with the strength for the next step. We are a community of pilgrims here. Please share in the comments who you are praying for tonight. Let us lift each other up on the journey. If you found rest here tonight, please subscribe to Beside Still Waters. Join us as we find still waters in the ancient stories of faith. Good night, and God bless.